Stephen Harper, the media and the truth. I'm Brian LIlley with TheRebel.Media. We've got a perpetuation of a myth, and I need to set the record straight because it's a myth. Well, actually, it's more of an outright lie. A lie told by people that don't even know what they're talking about. What am I talking about? The idea that Stephen Harper is so controlling that he vets every journalist and every question put to him at his news conferences. This idea came up again. It's been out there for a while. It's perpetuated on left-wing sites. It's perpetuated by left-wing politicians, by left-wing journalists, of which there are plenty. And it's perpetuated by people that know better. But this time it came up by someone who probably doesn't know better because, well, he's based in the United States. His name's Stephen Marsh. He's a Canadian. He writes for American publications, this time the New York Times. And he's writing about what he calls the closing of the Canadian mind and Stephen Harper's war with democracy. And he said this: his relationship with the press is one of outright hostility. At his notoriously brief news conferences, his handlers vet every journalist, picking and choosing who can ask questions. In the usual give and take between press and politicians, the hurly-burly of any healthy democracy, he has simply removed the give. Bull crap. That's all I can say to that. Bull crap. David Frum put forward in a piece in The Atlantic rebutting Marsh that it's not true either. And that had David Beers, who writes for the Tyee, a union-funded, Tides Foundation-funded, far-left publication out of Vancouver, saying, oh no, Frum's wrong. David Beers writes, Frum again cherry-picks and misleads, saying this refers to Harper's practice of calling upon journalists by name rather than responding to whoever shoves an audio recorder closest to the prime ministerial nose. Beers goes on, actually no, it refers to Harper's practice of holding very, very few Ottawa press conferences to begin with, usually with a foreign figure, roping reporters off in the back of the hall and commonly allowing just 2 questions from hand-picked members of Canada's National Press Corps. Again, bullcrap. I'm going to explain to you how news conferences under Stephen Harper work and how they worked under past prime ministers. Let's start with Beers and this 2 questions and foreign dignitaries. Guess what? It's long been that way. Does Harper pick who among the press gallery is going to ask the questions? No. Gallery members themselves get together and they negotiate, they cajole, they try and figure out what is the question that everyone's bureau will be happy with, and they negotiate. They negotiate a question, and then someone is picked to go forward and ask an English question and a French question. It's been this way for a long time under both Stephen Harper and Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien before him. Now, what about Stephen Harper's news conferences? Does he actually vet reporters? Does he pick reporters based on questions? Let me ask you, if Stephen Harper was actually doing this, picking and choosing journalists so that he could get a good question, do you think that he would be asked in 75% of the questions he's faced on the campaign trail questions about Mike Duffy? No! No, he'd be getting questions about, why are you so great? I mean, it would sound like a Justin Trudeau news conference. What Avenger do you like? What shampoo do you use? That's not the case. Do journalists put their name on a list? Yes. Are they told that you cannot ask certain questions? Are journalists told you can't get on the list? If you're an accredited journalist, no, you're getting on the list. On the current campaign tour, there are 5 questions per day, 6 days a week. 4 go to media traveling with the Leaders Tour, 1 goes to local media. This practice of putting your name on a list goes back to early in Harper's time. They talk about very short, very brief news conferences. I remember 10, 11 journalists putting their name on the list, a news conference lasting 45 minutes, and reporters walking out complaining that they had too many stories to file because he answered everybody's question in full. The only thing that Stephen Harper did was change from the scrum format that Paul Martin used to use. But guess what? He held those with a stanchion in front of him, standing well back, and he would just listen to the questions, waiting, just waiting for one that he liked, ignoring all the ones he didn't like, and then he would answer that question. That's how Paul Martin handled it. Chrétien used to take all kinds of questions, and sometimes you liked his answers, sometimes you didn't. The only thing that Stephen Harper changed was said, you've got to put your name on a list, you're going to get called, and you get called in order. This was back when reporters were also complaining, by the way, that he was holding his news conferences in the foyer of the House of Commons rather than the National Press Theatre. The real reason they were complaining was there was no simultaneous translation, and all those people that like to say so-and-so can't be leader because they're not bilingual enough, well, they're not bilingual enough to understand him when he's speaking French. So they complained. But had Stephen Harper gone to the National Press Theatre, do you know what they would have to do to get their question? They'd have to put their name on a list. But instead of it being Stephen Harper's team that controls it, it's a gallery member. That's the only difference. But they operate in the same way. They go in order. I've watched it happen for years. The idea that the Prime Minister is off just cherry-picking questions is such nonsense. It can't be believed. Like I said, would he really be getting Duffy questions nonstop? Final point, I've never seen Steve Marsh. I've never seen David Beers at a Stephen Harper news conference. Maybe in Vancouver, David Beers has gone to one. I've never seen Stephen Marsh at one. Yet they write with such authority, especially Marsh, writing in the New York Times a load of utter crap that's not fact-checked, that's just accepted. David Frum is right. I don't say that often, but David Frum is right on this. Marsh doesn't put forward arguments. He puts forward left-wing pablum that doesn't need to be explained, because if it needs to be explained to you, you can't possibly know. It's all just accepted, received wisdom. Except in this case, it's an outright lie. He should know better. You deserve the truth, and that's what you just got.